To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise. A promise of adventure. A promise of excitement. A promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
What's up, the internet? It's me, Kyle, and that, did I do it right? I got it. That is Dan.
It is.
Dan, you normally wear glasses and aren't.
What?
You normally wear glasses and aren't.
Yeah, we normally wear glasses.
Okay, but you're not right now, right? I'm not sure. Stroke. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, something is different, and I don't know what it is.
Here, let me go ahead and fix that for you. I don't want you to be too disturbed. There you go. Better?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's one of those things that I kind of am starting to get why nobody understands that Clark Kent is Superman. Like, I'm starting to get it. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's not that far-fetched as you think, yeah.
Right. It's like something is off here.
Yep.
Something I don't know. I don't understand. Right. Jeff's right. He's pulling a Clark Kent. Mm. So this is in stores this week, where we talk about books that are in stores this week, except for one of the books this week, which is not in stores, but I thought we would talk about it because it's a Kickstarter fulfillment. Yeah. And it's interesting. It should be in stores. It may be in stores. I know he's working on it.
Oh, that completely reminds. I forgot about something during my show.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably mention it at some point. Let's see. So it turns out I have a Kickstarter.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's about to launch, and we've got the page set up that you can, do the remind me thing. I can't do it in chat, but I'll post it in private and let you, if you want to add that. Okay. This is a book I've done with Carlos Reno as the artist on it. We've got covers by Stefan Sejic, Mirka Andolfo, and Michael DePascal. And it's through Dynamite, but it's a original graphic novel. It's 120 page graphic novel that is kind of an erotic slice of life called Karma. And it's the story of a advertising photographer that gets pulled into the life of basically an up-and-coming fashion model and pulled into the insane life. And it's based on, it's an original story, but there are elements that I have pulled from back when I was a photographer, incidents and events, and I sewed them into the story. And so you have this, basically it's a love story with, fetishism and eroticism and betrayal and comedy and all that other stuff. So that's going to launch soon. The link there is to the reminder page. So if you want to check that out, I would greatly appreciate it. I have never done a Kickstarter before. I've always been kind of leery of them, but I'm in for it. I've got some good people working with me on this one, so I am really looking forward to seeing how this does. And I've got more stories for this universe if it takes off. So
nice.
Plus, it's some gorgeous artwork in this book. Not only the covers, like I said, Stepan Sejic is just a master at this style of book. Michael DePascal is someone I worked with when I was doing stuff for Avatar, and Mirka Andolfo is just blowing up as well. So to have those three covers, there's a Michael DePascal's has both a naughty and a nice version of the cover. So we've got all the bells and whistles, and it should be a good Kickstarter campaign. It is a fun story to write, and yeah, I'll be talking more about it later on. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll start with that one. The one I did is Painkiller Jane, Heartbreaker, by Jimmy Palmiotti. I personally got the Bill Sienkiewicz cover.
Nice.
Right.
Good choice.
And I got some Painkiller Jane. What's their studio called? Paper Film Studio stickers. So this was available from Kickstarter, and I know Jimmy's trying to get Painkiller Jane back in stores, but he wants to kind of do it on his terms rather than going with a traditional publisher model. So this is the story. It's a straight up traditional Painkiller Jane story. There's a little bit of a reintroduction to the character, who she is and how she came to be how she is. And she winds up embroiled in what she calls a sit and drop mob story, where it's she's babysitting a mobster's granddaughter and trying to deliver them. But of course, as any Painkiller Jane story goes, that doesn't work out so well. And there's a couple of twists and turns and a couple of double backs and, good storytelling things from Jimmy Palmiotti in this story. The thing I will point out, because this is coming out through Kickstarter and not from anybody more traditional, it doesn't pull any punches. There's no softening of anything that might happen if it had come out through a more traditional publisher. So it is pretty extreme. So
all right.
Yeah, good story though. Like good little spy drama.
I am a fan of both Jimmy and Amanda. I love them. They're great. And I didn't get a chance to back this. Maybe if they have any left over, they'll do a Indiegogo thing where you could buy them directly or buy them directly from their site or something. I
think you can buy it directly from Paper Films.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. I do like Painkiller Jane. And like I said, I'm a big fan of both Jimmy and Amanda. So always love supporting them. So
yeah, this is the first Kickstarter I've backed of theirs. And I was really happy with the way things went. It was super smooth. You didn't get as many communications from them as you do from some Kickstarters. You have some guys who, I breathed a little bit on this book and, they send a notification. That was not the case here, but it was, hey, it's printed. Hey, it's on its way. Hey, it's here. We're shipping it now. Kind of, the updates you need. I have one Kickstarter that I backed like a year and a half ago. And the book's still not here because it's a children's book and they had to put it through like safety testing because children, and they send you the result of every safety test they do. And I'm like, I don't need to know about the ones you failed. Like, you have to correct that. I just want to know when the book is coming.
Yeah.
So
what's funny is art for me are the Kickstarters that have already fulfilled. They're done. You've got your stuff and they still send you messages. It's like,
and some of them are sending you about the next thing they're doing, or
Yeah.
Hey,
but it just seems that
but then there's
we've done our job. We've had our transaction. I've moved on. Please let it go. Don't be
I
clingy.
don't mind the ones. I don't mind the ones that tell me, okay, this creator's doing another book, because if I backed your book and I liked it, I want to know what the next one is or when I can get the next thing.
Yeah, I just
don't send me an update asking me did I like it.
Yeah, I just don't want a clingy Kickstarter creator. You know, it's
That's
sad.
fair.
It's just sad. You know when
That's
to move
fair.
on. So.
Don't be that guy, Dan, when you do yours.
Yes. The nice thing about this is I'm not the one running it. So basically, I'm just the talent on this one. How nice that actually is.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. All right. Since I had two that you didn't get to read because again, physical copy like here.
Mm-hmm.
I had another one that was a physical copy, which is Chicken Devil #3, which I believe was supposed to be the end of this story arc originally, but now there's a 4th issue. But it seems like they're creating more strings to tie up in the Chicken Devil story arc. So this one it's a quick read. It's the 2.5 top of the 3rd act of a traditional gangster movie, except that the guy's wearing a chicken suit. So, still really good. Still really enjoying this book.
This cover is fascinating to me because if it wasn't in color, I don't think people would know what the hell it was. But as soon as you put the primary color balls in there, you go, oh, he's in a ball pit and is about to attack somebody.
Yeah. There's a whole scene with a ball pit and a chicken fryer. And it's, of the ways you can kill people, this is a good one. So.
We just saw a ball pit fight on Hawkeye recently, so that's kind of cool.
Did I?
Episode 3, when they're before they get away from the tracksuit, Hawkeye dives into a ball pit and then comes up out of it with the arrows.
I don't remember.
Hits the guy, stabs the guy in the feet. 2 guys in the feet.
I don't remember. All right. Let's well, speaking of things I don't remember, Joy Operations #2 from Brian Michael Bendis. This is part of his Jinx World saga.
Yeah.
That, which is his creator-owned universe that, he has worked on, I think, several different places now, but
yeah.
The first issue of this, you read a lot of the issue before you really knew what the hell was happening.
Yes.
The second issue isn't a whole lot clearer.
No. The second issue is you read the entire issue and you go, are we still at the same point?
Kinda, yeah.
It's like, shouldn't we get some resolution to this particular problem and actually get into the story? It does feel like this could have been done in a couple pages and it took an entire book. And we're still not at the resolution. It's not like by the end of this issue, we've resolved it. No.
Right. I feel like the first 2 books could have been done in a couple of pages. And unless the 3rd book gives me some sort of understanding as to why it wasn't done that way, this is one that I would probably abandon pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It just isn't working for me, despite the fact that I generally like the Jinx World stuff. So
I'm curious where it's going, but not so curious to wait too long to get there.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll pick up the pace a little bit. And yeah.
I was watching a comedian do stand up, and I think he said it best. That's a long walk on a deserted beach to a cafe that's closed.
Yes.
This is how this has felt so far.
It's a good one. That's a good analogy. So
I see Lefty's on here. Bendis is off the rails. I don't think he is. I think the bigger issue here is that Bendis is clutching at pearls. He's holding this so dearly that he's missing some of the bigger points that could be being made.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's go to House of Slaughter number 3.
Yes. This is also confusing to me. This episode didn't clear up anything. And it jumped around enough that I'm lost.
I long for the simplicity of Something is Killing the Children, which wasn't at all simple. But by comparison, it was. I think it's good. I've enjoyed House of Slaughter. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, and parts of 3 were phenomenal. But I just think we're trying to expand the Something is Killing the Children universe and doing so to its own detriment. Leaving something to be discovered or be desired by the fans gives them something to keep coming back to. And what happens in a book like this one is you're trying to answer questions without answering questions. It's I'm going
to come at this from a writer point of view. What this is missing to me, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but if I was trying to do this story, it's missing an audience character. Everybody is being mysterious. Nobody is getting answers. Nobody is looking for answers. You need to have the Watson character when you've got this much stuff going on, the person that is finding out all this information and putting it all together. And there isn't that person.
Right.
The narrator is not telling us anything. He's as mysterious as everybody else in the book. We're jumping all over the place. So even if you had a narrator, it's not an omnipotent narrator. So it just doesn't have that connector for the audience to get the information.
The other thing with this one too, I think that would solve a lot, Dan, actually, is somebody or a previously in House of Slaughter, where they have to drill it down and narrow it down to kind of give you, these are the high point kind of things.
Yeah, but if you're using that's just lazy writing. If you have to go back and do a recap because,
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though, is like because you don't have an audience character, someone who is doing the distillation of information, you either have to do it yourself or you have to be less oblique.
Yeah. Yeah, they're being obscure for being obscure sake. And it's just not working. I want it to work. I think that there's an interesting history here. You've got one character from another house coming into this house. It could have spent the time learning about this particular house and comparing and contrasting it to the other house and given us a ton of information, and none of that has happened. So the setup is there, but they're not doing it. Instead, we get this weird romance thing going on in the middle of, I don't even know what it is. I don't even have a good word for it or a good comparison for it. So.
Yeah. This was one that like I said, having the back knowledge of Something is Killing the Children certainly helps with House of Slaughter. But at some point you're being too obscure. Yeah. You're being too cagey with your information. And this is an example of that.
Yep.
All right. This is All Nighter number 4.
This is another one from Comixology. So they come in on weird days, and I think I've had this one in my email for like 2 weeks, and suddenly I saw it like, oh, I have that one. Hang on. I got to tell you, I haven't read the ones before it, but this really kind of feels like an odd kick-ass thing. Like it feels like Kick-Ass, and I'm not sure in a good way or a bad way. You know?
So All Nighter is let me read you the thing. By the way, numbers 1 and 2 came out the same day on All Nighter. If that gives you any indication as to how All Nighter is coming out.
Well, I'm assuming the All Nighter is the name of the restaurant.
So Alex is bored, flipping burgers for strangers all night is no way for a vampire to live. But he and his fellow vampires, Joy, Cynthia, and Ian, have agreed to blend into human society. Inspired by superhero movies, one of the few passions in his unlife, Alex decides to don a cape and start fighting bad guys. But his decision will have bigger consequences than he realizes for himself and for everyone he wants to protect. From Chip Zdarsky and Jason Liu, the Eisner Award-winning team behind Afterlift, The All-Nighter is a story about found family and a new twist on superheroes.
Nothing in this issue, nothing says they're vampires. At no point did I pick up that these were vampires. That's the most shocking thing that you could have read of everything. It just felt like they were superhero characters that somehow were connected like a found family in this all-night diner, and things had gone bad when one of them went out and tried to be a superhero. Vampirism did not come up at all in this issue.
I'm reading the other solicits because I too haven't read this book.
Yeah.
It's sounding more and more by the time we get to issue 4 here. Like, this is a story about a guy who made a decision and is now in over his head. The fact that he's a vampire, doesn't really contribute here, which I think is factual based on the way that they're, kind of setting this up, is that these are people who are trying to pass as not vampires.
Yeah.
So you don't know they're vampires, or the average person doesn't know they're vampires. We do, but they don't tell people. And now they're dealing with an actual supervillain as opposed to just like muggers and robbers and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's causing problems. Yeah, this is weird.
Yeah. Maybe going back and reading the first issues would help. But the only thing that makes it click is that they're wearing helmets in full black to go into the police station during the day. Nothing else tells me they're vampires. So, by the way, hi to Sean, 62 Lefty, Richard, and Jeff. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Hope you're going to have a good holiday season. And please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'm guessing most of you are regulars, so you subscribed. But do me a favor, hit the like buttons. The higher ups seem to like it when we have lots of views and likes.
Right. And once we get through our books, Dan and I are going to talk more about Spider-Man.
Yes. So if you were in our conversation earlier, you're going to hear us again. So,
yeah. All right. Let's go with Harbinger number 3.
Thankfully. One of my favorite books this week. This and Barbarella.
This was a great book. I agree with you on this and Barbarella. I have one book that I liked better, but that's for very different reasons, I think, than anybody else.
This is basically the Harbinger series before. Harbinger series before was basically like an X-Men title. It was a group of powered individuals on the run, misfits of science. I mean, there's been thousands of these. And somehow now they're bringing it all together into a single hero who's now going by the name of the Harbinger. And it's Peter
Stanchek.
And it's really fascinating because it seems like the big bad of this series may also be Peter Stanchek. And this is really fascinating about how all the psiots are being pulled into one area. They're trying to be controlled. There's a lot of lying by the government. There's a lot of references to the past, but nothing that you need to go and read. And this really has been a great series so far. I am really enjoying this series. This is a really good. This is a win. I am so impressed by all the Valiant books I've been reading lately. And this one just continues. And Harbinger was never one of my favorites. I read it, but I did, and I kept up on it because I'm friends with Josh Dysart when he was doing them, this is definitely climbing up my list.
Yeah, same. I wasn't a Harbinger guy. I was an XO. I would read Ninjak. I would read, the one they did the movie on.
Bloodshot.
I'll just be here. I can't believe I couldn't remember Bloodshot. A very, very long weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Harbinger is growing on me. And by the way, the Adam Polina cover is super cool looking.
Is that the one there, or is it a?
No, this is the A cover by Robbie Rodriguez.
Okay.
I didn't see the B cover until just now, or I would have grabbed it. But it's super cool. This is growing on me quickly. It wasn't one of those books that I would have picked up had Dan not suggested it. But now I'm glad I'm reading it because I think the Valiant universe is one that I could really find myself. I'm largely separated from Marvel and DC. I don't read a lot of superhero stuff anymore. I read Spider-Man, but that's just because it's like my job. But I don't read a ton of superhero stuff anymore. This could be the place where I get my superhero fix.
Yeah. And Sean, I agree with you. I'm a huge Ninjak fan. He's probably my favorite of the Valiant characters. The last series was rough. And it was because both of us agreed, we didn't think the art matched the series. We didn't say the art was bad. I don't want to say that.
It felt out of place.
It felt out of place. So I liked what they did in the series. I liked the writing on it. Didn't like the art for that series. And I look forward to seeing what they do next with that. I've seen some of the upcoming pages for the next set of Shadowman series. They're going to continue the Cullen Bunn run. I believe the same artist is coming back. That was really good. We both liked what's going on over in Exo-Man of War. So, yeah. Valiant's killing it right now.
Absolutely. All right. I'm not even going to make the joke I always make every week when we talk about Barbarella.
I got to say that this may be my favorite Barbarella story so far. And I've been a fan of this book since it's come out. And interesting enough, you and I have been talking about how Madabek, or the previous artist who did the first 5 issues, was killing it. Mm-hmm. And then they switched artists, and this new artist is great. I thought it looked crazy.
Musa Bekov is back on this book.
Okay, he didn't do this issue though.
Supposedly, according to the paperwork, he is back.
On the actual interior of the book, the artist is Tommaso Bianchi.
Right. So what I'm wondering is if it's not a Musa Bekov is taking an art direction role.
Could be, or he might just taken the episode off or the issue off.
Right.
Yeah. But if Tommaso is the new artist on it, it's not going to miss a beat.
No, I quite enjoyed the art style in this book. There were some points where you have Barbarella in Barbarella-y situations where she is in a compromising situation, in bed kind of things, where traditional Barbarella artists would have drawn it very differently than this person did. And I appreciate the difference. One of the things I had with the Painkiller Jane book, and when I read Painkiller Jane, I know what I'm getting. When I read Barbarella, I know what I'm getting. When I read Vampirella, I know what I'm getting when I read these books. When I read the book in Dan's Kickstarter, I know what I've signed up for.
Yes.
But sometimes I feel like in books like Barbarella and books like Painkiller Jane and books like some of these, eroticism is used as a crutch. And I love it when it's not. Like, Jimmy didn't use it as a crutch in this. It definitely wasn't here in Barbarella. Like, it's so... I was really pleased that they put the character into erotic situations or normal human situations, right? And not use it as a chance to be weird about it.
Yeah.
Also, this artist, I love the way they draw the aliens.
Yep. And Vix, the whole story comes from the point of view of the little fox-like creature she's been running around with, who has appeared to be a pet. And we find out that's not the situation at all. It's fascinating. And it reminds me a little bit, and just to give you a reference, the Flurkin from Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Goose. So if you're a fan of Goose from Captain Marvel, this is a book for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
there was one book that was really confusing to me when the other one showed up and said, "Oh, you met her too soon," but that didn't seem to actually take place. It kind of seemed like it was out of place.
Right. I like the fact that we got the story about the animal. We like that this wasn't necessarily a Barbarella story.
No,
it was a story from a different point of view.
Yes.
So
absolutely. So good one to pick up on. Good one to jump in on too. It's actually a good introduction to the character.
Mm-hmm. So all right, Clear, number 3,
which is anything but.
Is it just so you're having the same kind of indication I'm having from Comixology, the Comixology books? Because I think Comixology is used to just being able to publish when they publish, what they publish, how they publish.
Mm-hmm.
They're not paying as close of attention to traditional story beats.
Yes.
And the result is that you don't get the pauses where you'd expect the pauses.
Yes.
And I think that's what happened here with Clear is after going back and reading issue 2, because I still have it, it felt like issue 2 should have ended a couple of pages earlier than it did.
Mm-hmm.
And issue 3 should have started in a different spot.
Yeah.
And then rolled on. The analogy I'll give, if you've listened to the Sandman audiobook, you know how the chapters kind of roll into each other?
Uh-huh.
But the chapter markers aren't lined up with that?
Yeah.
That's how this feels to me.
Yep.
So the story is what the story is. It's Scott Snyder trying to confuse and manipulate your brain and your emotions. Yeah. But I think because Scott is writing in more of a traditional style, that the fact the story beats just aren't in the right place.
I don't know what the editorial staff is at Comixology, but I think that's where, and it's kind of a consistent thing across the line, is there's nobody telling these creators, look, this isn't coming across right. This isn't coming across to the reader as you would expect. And which is an important role for the editor. And it doesn't feel like that's being done here. Now, I don't know. I don't know the situation. I'm only looking at it from an outside point of view.
Right.
But there is really a readability issue to some of these, because I think it's a good story. I think the potential here for a really good story, but there's not enough clear delineation when they're going between flashbacks and now. They keep, there's all this other stuff going on with these veils and stuff that obscure it even more. And an editor, I think, could have, being from outside the story, could have said, hey, Scott, look, you need some delineation, or Francis, you guys need a color change. You need border change, something to tell the reader X, Y, and Z what's going on. And it's not happening here, and it's not happening in some of the other Comixology series as well.
Right. The listed editor on this is Will Dennis.
Who, XTC editor.
Right. Who's great.
Yeah.
But it just, it feels like maybe they're trying to do something differently.
Yeah.
For me, it feels more like this is a book that's set up to be on Webtoon, as opposed to be published in individual 22-page arcs.
Yeah.
Sean, I see your question. Sean says, not to sidebar you for too long. Honest question, if you had to pick a top 10 list best reads from this year, how many, if any, from the big two would be on your list? Hey, Dan, why don't we do a show like this on the Dan Wickline show in the next couple of weeks?
Okay. We can do that.
Okay. My answer would be there would certainly be some, but what they would be and how many there would be, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think mine would have quite a few, but I haven't had the chance to read as many as I normally would. And now what we're reading are the ones we're getting digitally and we can share, and the big two don't share.
Right.
So, where I would probably, I'm more of a mainstream reader, where Kyle is more of an indie reader, which is why this works really well. But right now, what we get access to is mainly the indie books and stuff like Valiant and Zenoscope. So that's what we're covering. But I think there's some great the big two books. Moon Knight is one that comes to mind for me. Moon Knight is fantastic right now.
For me, I think Basket Full of Heads and some of the Joe Hill DC Black Label stuff. It's I see. And Sean, I'll never put Kickstarter books on the list. Just personally, Kickstarter books are a separate category. I'll do my top 10 Kickstarters of the year, but I don't want to compare somebody who's making their own books, writing, drawing, maybe hiring their friend as an editor, to guys who have the giant infrastructure of a publisher.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's necessarily a fair comparison. I don't think they're playing the same sport.
Yeah. And if you have access to Richard Starkings to do your lettering and Richard Isanova for your coloring, that's going to put you up there higher just out the gate. And it's because you have access to those people.
Right. If you've got Francis Manipul drawing your weird book for your not traditional publisher.
Yeah. But since you do Kickstarters, Sean, make sure you check out mine that launches soon.
Yeah. It's in the comments, Sean.
You might have missed it, but if you can scroll up to the beginning of the comments, the link for the launch of the Kickstarter, check it out.
By the way, did you see my comment on our friend JD made a post? Apparently I read comics now. What should I read? And Dan, you posted a bunch of great stuff and you mentioned The Freeze.
Yes.
In it. And I go, he forgot to mention all of the Sinbad stuff from Zenoscope and the dynamite book stuff. I just had to laugh because, like, I commented that, like, oh, Dan forgot to put himself over all the way, just a little bit of the.
I'm not good at self promotion. I'm really not. So
Guys, look, if you need something to read over the holiday break to get away from your family, I just listened to the Dynamite Books audiobook of Shaft. I've had it for a while, and I'm like, hey, I never finished that. Let me start it over and listen to it this weekend while I drove 600 miles. And it was great. And so I've started on Dan's is the Vampirella one?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Yeah. Let me double check my Audible. Yes, it's the Vampire one.
The gentleman who reads the Shaft book is named Will Dixon, who is a friend of mine from out here. Most of the people who did the Dynamite books were actors that I know here in LA that we got to do this, and they're from a group called the Skeleton Crew. I interviewed Adam Marcus on my show a couple of weeks ago, and that's his group. It's a troupe of actors that he teaches and works with. They all were in the movie Secret Santa together. Will Dixon is this African American actor who is just fantastic. He's a really good guy. We've done these table reads together where we take some of the superhero scripts that don't get made and we read them as almost like a live radio show. But and Will has been in a couple of those with me. And at one point he got to do Perry White, and he was awesome as Perry White. So it's, Will's great. Yeah, all the voice actors we got for this stuff are really good people. So
yeah, so make sure you check those out. They make a great Christmas gift if you have an audiobook lover or just a regular book lover in your life.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last book we read this week is Snelson. Comedy is Dying, number 5, which is the end of the Snelson Comedy is Dying story arc.
Right.
I did not.
Okay. I was going to say that this is unique for me because I'm coming in on the 5th issue of a series that I've not read the previous ones, and now I want to. I understood where this was going. This was good read. I enjoyed it, and now I want to go get the earlier ones.
I missed number 1 and started getting it from number 2 and have been reading it since then because this book has been particularly triggering for me. And I will say this book is about a comedian who finds himself on the wrong side of cancel culture. Think Louis C.K. And
a touch of Jesse Smollett.
Yeah, touch of Jesse Smollett.
Yeah.
And while Louis and Jesse are going to wind up on that side of cancel culture correctly, this person, Snelson, doesn't necessarily. He's one of those guys like, think Sam Kinison or, hold on, I'm going to forget his name.
Andrew Dice Clay.
No,
Lenny Bruce.
Mark Maron is a more cleaned up, more modernized, less troubling example. Bill Hicks is the name I was going for. But Sam Kinison, Bill Hicks, Dice might be the opposite, should have been canceled. It should have been canceled.
Yeah.
I've seen Dice's act. But there are comedians out there who are getting canceled for saying things that are just unpopular.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying anything wrong. And the end result is that, as I try to adjust my camera, the end result is that you have guys like this who feel attacked for doing their job.
Yeah.
And again, there are some people who deserve it. Who totally makes sense that they would be canceled. Some of the stuff Chappelle has done has rightfully drawn that ire. But Bobcat Goldthwait is somebody like this who has faced that kind of cancellation for nothing really. So Snelson starts a website called Comedy is Dead, where he talks about, having the ability to do your job, even though people might not like it. He talks about some of this kind of conceptual things. And as you go through the story, it's the different phases of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Him as a radio host, him as a podcaster, him as a blogger, this kind of thing. And you get to this last issue, and he's not doing anything because this thing has kind of taken on a life of its own until somebody, ironically, tries to shoot up a comedy club in Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah.
We don't have a comedy club in Toledo, Ohio anymore.
That's because all the shootings.
No, it's because all the mobsters. We have one place that has comedy, but not every night.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a Cajun restaurant. Yeah, I go for the Cajun and sometimes stay for the comedy. But no,
Good Cajun food, man. Love good Cajun food.
I love a good shrimp po' boy from this place. Like,
Nice.
but no, and so he makes a decision that becomes unpopular, and he finds redemption through helping someone who he had influenced the other way.
Yep.
So I really do think this guy's got a lot of Mark Maron in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you listen to early episodes of the WTF podcast, or you see Mark Maron's special, Jerusalem Syndrome, you could clearly see where Snelson and Maron would be on similar trajectories. And while Maron took his and channeled into something good, Snelson went the other direction until the end.
Yeah. But when you get into those kind of comedians, and you have to go all the way back to some of the guys even before them, like Carlin, stuff like that. But you got to start with Lenny Bruce.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who Lenny Bruce is, educate yourself. The guy was amazing and pissed off a lot of people.
Yep. I mean, my comedy chops kind of start with the cocaine era. So, I mean, we're talking late life Carlin, or late comedy career Carlin, before he became an author and a children's show conductor. And
Well, Lenny Bruce was a little before my time, but I got introduced to him because at the age of 18, my father was a bartender in Florida at one of the clubs that he highlighted. So he was dealing with Lenny Bruce all the time. So it was just kind of interesting. And I've got some interesting stories from my dad about it.
Right. No, like I said, yeah. Lenny Bruce is a great example. Yeah. But yeah, there are certainly others. So that's the last book for this week. Next week is also a really small week for comic shops. Just keep in mind that traditionally around the holidays, the publication schedule is light. Sometimes there are skip weeks in shipping.
Mm-hmm.
So just be cool if there's some weirdness.
Yeah, I think Dynamite has one book next week. Normally there are 4 or 5
never
books.
only has one book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see how many books we have, or how many we're just, debating the latest movies again.
Right.
All right, you got 5 minutes, my friend.
All right. Here's how I would change.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Here, I'm going to do this because we just need to do it. Where's the thing I need to click? Here it is. All right. So, rewriting the third act of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right. Which most people seem to think is the best act in it, but
I don't think you kill Aunt May where you kill Aunt May.
All right. Maybe a little higher up on the chest or down, maybe in the back.
What I would have done were it me, and this again, I've run this by a former Marvel editor who says this is how you would write it in a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than have Aunt May die in the scene where Aunt May dies, they miraculously escape. You cut to the scene of Ned and MJ trying to find Peter, and Ned is going like this and going, "Show me Spider-Man," and meets the other two. They all come together, and there's this kind of big sort of, "Who are you? What are you?" And they all kind of have this talk about how they should deal with these bad guys. Aunt May gives this big kind of emotional speech that ends with the correct quote of Stan Lee finally. And in this speech, every one of the Spider-Men who are on the roof get a little something, right, to help them with their... So now they all have the same, they all have an emotional connection to this Peter's Aunt May, to Marissa Tomei's Aunt May.
Okay.
They go to the Statue of Liberty. This Michigan starts at the Statue of Liberty, and Aunt May gets pulled through the portal with Ned and MJ, and she dies protecting them. So now you have this thing where they're all fighting kind of independently, and they see this happen where Aunt May died doing what they should have been doing, and that's the linchpin for them to come together and actually start to bring the characters to the end. Right? So...
if you're Joss Whedon, that's exactly how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
That is Joss Whedon's playbook. That's right. Killing Wash. That's killing Pietro. Mm-hmm. I don't think it works here because there was a couple beats they wanted that don't work with that. They wanted a moment between just Tom Holland and Marissa Tomei because that's where it started. Before there was Spider-Man No Way Home, there was Captain America Civil War, and there was just Spider-Man and her. There was Peter and Aunt May. And I think they wanted to bring it back to that, where only Happy gets to come in at the end because he comes into the family and becomes that triangle, that third thing. So I think that was, but also, if you keep the death that late as you want to, you change the tone of the ending. By the third act is the redemption. Having her death in the end of the second act is the transformation moment, is the catalyst that moves him forward, and then creates the bonding moment between the Spider-Men. His loss of Aunt May matches their losses of Uncle Ben. But and had he lost Uncle Ben in a similar way, they wouldn't have needed that. But because Marvel had skipped the whole Uncle Ben thing, there was no emotional connection.
I understand why they did what they did.
Yes.
This is if I were rewriting it.
Uh-huh.
So I would have gone through that Joss Whedon playbook a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how we really get kind of where I wanted this movie to go. Right at the end, as Doctor Strange is about to cast the spell to send everybody back, here's Miles and he's gone. Hey, did I miss it? And he's gone. Okay. Now hold on.
Okay.
Now it's Peter trying to figure out who that other guy was and kind of taking his Spider-Man thing and becoming more of a teacher of other, like taking that leadership role as opposed to taking that more solitary, role. Like that's what I'm saying is set him up so that he can continue to instill in if Miles is somehow still around or another character. You introduce not necessarily doesn't have to be Miles, it has to be just another character. Kate Bishop, somebody shows up. And now he's taken on this. I was in the Avengers. My Aunt May taught me all this stuff. Now he is kind of imparting that wisdom to another hero or another generation of hero. That's where I wanted it to go.
I think introducing Miles here would have changed the narrative of the movie. Borrowing from what Sean said earlier, Miles is a popular character in the nerd culture. And when you bring in a character like that, even in a cameo, I mean, look how much buzz Matt Murdock got, or Daredevil got, for showing up in that little scene in the first act. If you brought Miles in, even in a cameo at the end, you know, even if it was in the post-credits scene, that becomes all the buzz.
Right.
Lee had an interesting point. He said that your version would justify Tom's not getting back with Zendaya. And I disagree with that because I think we see he sees Aunt May die in the middle of the fight. Then when he's talking to Zendaya or he's talking to MJ and he's trying to decide if he's going to tell her or not, he's hesitating. He sees the wound, the bandage covering what she got during the fight. And it reminded him that anybody that loves him is in danger. And that's why he pulled back from it. Because now she can go on, her and Ned can go on to college and be safe and have a normal life where he can't. Because he's Spider-Man. He knows this. But if he stayed with her and tried to talk her through it, or tell her, look, we were in love, blah, blah, blah. If he does that, he is basically putting her back in that position, the same position that got Aunt May killed.
So this is the other thing that would come with this, right?
Yeah.
MJ had an arc as Spider-Woman. So instead of him getting back with Zendaya's MJ, MJ goes off to MIT, gets bit by a spider, and they either use her as Silk or they use her as a Spider-Woman. And now Peter gets to be her mentor, and she still has no idea who he is. They can do that. They can do that either way now. Where they left it, there's no reason they can't do that.
Right. Or they could just move on.
Right.
Give him a completely different life, go in a different direction, change it up, change the cast. They could bring in Harry Osborn. They could bring in these other characters. Betty Brand.
I mean, they had Betty Brand there.
Yeah. They could bring in Felicia Hardy if they want to go with that route. You know, we're going to have the symbiote costume. They could bring in the black suit. They could bring in Black Cat.
Right.
Go a completely different direction.
The place they left it is a good place for the future.
Yeah.
Like I said, my thing would have been to, instead of leaving it open for the future, to prescribe what the future is.
But you've got two different companies that figure these things out movie by movie. So leaving it open makes it easier going forward, where they're not coming. I mean, because what if Sony decides they're not going to do another Spider-Man movie with Marvel? They're going to go over and do their own thing and take Spider-Man with them. You know, if you introduce Miles here, you're making a promise of more of that character, and that's the future's uncertain.
I understand. Like my ending as well, they would have had to work some stuff out. Like, don't misunderstand this. This is like dream casting. It's dream rewriting.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, is that everything I'm hearing from you, your complaint is what they didn't put in the movie because it isn't where you wanted it to go. And to me, that is a little bit like the toxic fandom. I mean, you you can have your, well, this is where I'd go with it. But if you still need to look at the movie for what they presented, what they gave you, but if you, it's like, again, it's like being upset because they didn't bring Arnim Zola into The Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's not the story they were telling. This is the story they were telling. Was this story good? That's the question, is not, well, it would have been better if they did X, Y, and Z.
And I stand by my it's only okay. I stand by my it's only okay.
Yeah.
It could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yes.
So,
and I think it was great. Sean, I don't think they're going to bring in a different Eddie. I think that Tom Hardy is Eddie Brock now. And if they're going to do a Venom story, they'll do it in a Spider-Man movie or a Venom movie. And somehow he'll shift between worlds. Because Kevin Feige's on record of saying Spider-Man's the only one with the power to shift between worlds. And it could be because we see the little Venom symbiote dot or droplet on the counter, that it might be able to let him go through because it's from that other universe. There's ways.
Well, Lee, go back and watch the Dan Wickline show from earlier today on their YouTube to hear the rest of this. Guys, we got to wrap up. BCU is next with Hugo Award winners John Jennings and Damian Duffy. So we will see everybody next time.
Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.